Matt, I was on your show earlier talking about it. I went on 4. I didn't get the 5th one. I went on 4 Sputnik shows, Fault Lines, the Backstory, Critical Hour. What's the other one? The second one, the one at 10 o'clock. The Final Countdown. I went on 4 channels. I went live in studio. I got to sit there with Jamal Thomas, right? And that Jamal Charles, who's not the running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is the guy from Chicago with the hat that does some reporting over at Sputnik. I got to sit down with him and Malik. I got to do the show with Rachel Brevins. It was via satellite, but I got to sit down with Dr. Wilmer Leone to talk about what we got to experience over the weekend, Don. And this is going to be fun because we obviously were together, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You took off early. You didn't stay for the 14-hour live stream.
Right. I was watching it on the train.
You didn't stay for the real action, baby. You didn't stay for the – whoa, woo. But listen, let me tell you this. As a guy who's been to Democratic conventions, and I know you've been to them too, Matt, I don't know if you've been to any of those. I remember the first one I went to in San Francisco. I can't remember the year. Was it 2018 or something? Whatever it was. Was it 2016? I can't even remember. It was way back in the day.
2016 was in Philly.
That was the national one. I'm talking about the California state one.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that
I'm trying to do. They got a specific story that I walked in there. I believe it was 2018, and I went in this credentials kind of hearing for the credentialing committees and whatnot. It was anybody who had objections, and the chair that was there for the Democrats pretty much admitted that in this one particular race, the person was cheated. There was cheating going on, but the math wouldn't have mattered, so they're going to allow the election to stand. Literally admitted that they were cheating, and they're going to let it stand. And we see stuff like that all the time. And when you're walking into those Democratic conventions, you already know who's going to win. They already have their chosen ones lined up. It's just a formality. It's just a place for a bunch of Democrats to get together and booze on up and drink, and then yell at everybody for looking at them awkwardly. You know what I'm saying? They had their, before the ring lights and the cameras. Are you looking at me? No. It's one of those, it's a woke convention, right? And at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like a democracy. It feels like a club, and you're just honoring those in the club. And you can't speak about certain things. You can never speak about Epstein because it hurts Hillary Clinton and it helps Donald Trump, right? That was that election. So going to see this convention, Don, and what I witnessed on Sunday was really the cherry on top. Not only was it a great convention where we had people there, and once again, I don't align with everybody's ideology, but the first interview I had with Thomas Massey, when I just caught him with my phone, and even nothing, I just held my phone up like this, and I went off his face a little bit, but I asked him a question, and we went over that question. We played it. Can you grab that Thomas Massey video real quickly, the one with the questions? We're going to grab it, though, and it really set the tone for what this convention was about. And I've been trying to kind of convey this to people that libertarians as a whole, their ideology is, as far as their economics, when it comes to the free market, is not about enriching themselves. It's about taking away the fangs from the tyrannical government and rendering them powerless, right? Not allowing them to form monopolies and keep the little guy down. They don't look at the deregulations in a way that it's going to save something or help something. They look at it as a mechanism the ruling class will use to put so much red tape, so much expenses on small businesses that the corporations will thrive. That's their ideology. And with Thomas Massey, it really set the table because you could see his ideology. We didn't agree, but guess what? Because of his ideology as far as being a libertarian, non-interventionist, no sanctions, we'll get the same results. We don't believe the cause is the same, but we both believe and recognize the problem itself, and we can fix it by removing away the mechanism the state uses to suppress other countries. Take a look at this. This is Thomas Massey, and let's get Don's opinion. You don't have it? What do you mean? It's on our... I know, but there's 4 of them. I don't know which one you're talking about. The one with just me and him. It's on my Twitter. Want me to grab it? Yeah, it's on my Twitter. I should have told you that. We're going to play this.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm going to point out some things really quickly that I pointed out, and I want your opinions, Don, because Massey's roots, right?
That was a great interview.
We're going to have to blame the welfare state, right? That's a libertarian thing. So The reason for I asked him about migration coming here. He's always going to blame the welfare state because that's part of the libertarian economics. We got it?
Yeah, I didn't agree with him, of course, on the whole question of him beating down the idea that U.S. foreign policy is what drives people from their homes to follow their stuff here. He was very, I don't agree with him, put it that way. But it was a very good interview because you got he spewed everything he's got, and you can see that there's stuff there that's useful to work with, and that there's stuff there that you got to keep your eye on.
Yeah. I mean, he's still. Let's just play it. Here we go. We got to hear Jamie Theisel Cheese Slice is going to bring it up. This is me at the Libertarian Convention. We're playing this one because this kind of set the tone. This was the first interview, and we'll take a look.
Thanks.
May I ask? Sorry. All right. So you said that.
Sorry.
Just say pasta to go. I'm an independent journalist and whatnot.
Okay.
All right. Nice to meet you, Congressman. So you said that Donald Trump was one of the most anti-war president in your time. However, a lot of people in my group don't like his Latin American policy. A week before he was out the door, he labeled Cuba a state sponsor of terrorism. There's a lot of colleagues on your side of the aisle that are for keeping these sanctions and all this pressure on the Cuban government, despite them having a new leader. What is your position on what we should do when it comes to Latin America? And would you recognize that a lot of the reasons we have so much migration to the border is our foreign policy?
I'm not going to blame our foreign policy on illegal immigration. I mean, part of the biggest reason we have illegal immigration into this country is Joe Biden is inviting them. I mean, they're being promised free benefits, amnesty, all of these other things. No, I'm not going to blame.
You don't think 100 bases in Latin America is a reason why stealing their resources is sending so many people to the border?
No, that's not the reason. I mean, I do think we should get the CIA out of Central and South America. I do think we should end all of the sanctions on Cuba. Those are just sane things to do. But blaming our foreign policy or blaming immigration on our foreign policy is almost as in Central America, I think is almost as ridiculous as blaming global warming on the illegal immigration. Our policies in this country, Joe Biden's policies, are causing that illegal immigration right now.
So why was there so much immigration?
We're missing Don. No big deal. But your opinions right there on that, Matt. I mean, I know we talked about this before on my show. But since we're on my show, we got maybe a few different people. What do you think about that? I mean, your thoughts, because I know he was going to blame this the welfare state because he's a libertarian, and the libertarians always got to blame the welfare state. Your thoughts?
Well, okay. First, I want to get back to how you let in, because that I have to definitely say, and I'll say this again, your ability to conduct that interview from start to finish and guide it and get him on record for so many things was incredible. Now, when we finished our interview earlier today on the homeless left, we did have a viewer write in that asked the question, why didn't possibly go double down on the immigration question? Well, then what is it that like to just double down? And that is a tactic. And I explained it. I'm on the side of you were able to cover more ground. He kind of was so honest in that moment that it didn't really need another like gotcha on this. Like you went on to the next topic. And so I'll say well done. And it's there. It's out in the world for everyone to see. Everyone can see that that's his stance, even though we're saying you're not going to go. You're not going to give us the reason. You're going to deflect that reason. But we know our foreign policy is a huge thing, and we can talk hours about our foreign policy affecting our domestic policy. I mean, Martin Luther King talks about this. It's like let's not discuss that. So my point is, you drew him through there. You got him on record on so many things. I'm reflecting on it, even seeing it again, and I just think it was a phenomenal job. And yeah, he's the best. He's the guy we would put as speaker. I mean, he's the guy. There's nobody else. So yeah, kudos again for you getting him on the record. He does have things we have to, as Don said earlier, we have things we got to keep our eye on about him. But it's great that we align on certain things.
Good. You want us to play the rest of the video, Don? I paused it till you got back in here.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I had a tech problem. No, just for people to listen for this for the rest of this, and then I'll send them if you don't want to play it. But contrast what you got out of him compared to what I got from Vivek when I was asking him questions in that press conference. When I would ask a direct question, and he had this whole long tale that he would tell of bull, you know what? You're getting, whether you like what he's saying or not, you're getting him to talk directly. And that's a good interview, in my opinion, for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's play the rest of it real quick.
Before Joe Biden, there was a lot of immigration when Donald Trump was the president, when Ronald Reagan was the president, and there are 100 bases in Latin America.
Well, we have welfare. I mean, you got welfare benefits. I don't blame people for wanting to come to this country. We've got better schools. We've got better jobs. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. That was my question. That was my question. Do you believe that Cuba should be labeled a state sponsor of terror, or would you think that we should pull that designation off them?
I would not label any country a state sponsor of terrorism, because right now we've got a global war on terrorism. It's basically the ability to go to war with any country that gets that label, or to put sanctions on those countries. The other foolish thing is once you start sanctioning countries, they quit using the dollar. And that's the last hat trick we have to deal with our debt, is to inflate the dollar and take the reserves out of those sovereign banks without even making a withdrawal, by deflating the dollar. So sanctions don't make sense. Defining them as state sponsors of terrorism, that only gives the executive branch more power, because there's a whole host of things then that a president can do without Congress once they get that designation. So no, I wouldn't make that.
Bing, 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 bing.
There's a lot of people here who want you to be the Speaker of the House. Do you want the job? I mean, because I think as a leftist, a lot of people say that this guy's the most common sense. He's the most practical out there. Do you want to be the Speaker of the House if you have the opportunity to do so?
I don't want to be the Speaker of the House. If we can't find somebody else that'll do it, I would do it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
He hurried on to the next guy, and the next person was just asking him to try to say that Israel Gaza was not a genocide, but that's beside the point. Don, I did hit the bell.
Yeah, I heard
when
it.
He said executive branch, right? This is something, once again, no, I don't want to give the government too much power over here. You label them a state sponsor of terror. Now, the president of these United States does not have to go to Congress, can act behind closed doors and do whatever the hell he wants. More sanctions, more starving people out. He can even do with the AUMF and labeling a state sponsor of terror. He can even wage a private war with Navy SEALs and Green Berets behind people's back and not even tell the Congress or the people. Go ahead, Don.
Not only that. So you see what they did with our friends down in St. Petersburg, Florida, and with Amalia Shatila and the folks in that group, from the Uhuru group.
Yeah.
Imagine if they made Russia a state sponsor of terror and then charged them with the crap that they charged them with, which is all nonsense anyway. But now they would be also charged with aiding and abetting terrorism. I mean, that allows them to charge anyone that has anything to do with the object of this designation. If they designate Palestinians terrorists, and we speak for their lives, we can end up in the same dock that Lynn Stewart ended up in.
Yep. I would say this much: the right wing does this too, as far as the Palestinian protest. They're saying they're sponsoring terrorists. The terrorist, right? And you talked about Uhuru, and this is they label them a domestic terrorist. So they're doing it on the left as well as they're doing it on the right, and that's why we have to be careful of this. And this is what we tell these people on the right, or tell these people on the left: what are you doing? There's nuance here. It's like the terrorism is the right wing's version of hate speech. You can't do that. You start labeling that. Who's going to determine what the hate speech is? This is why the Libertarian Party's been growing on me for years, is because they got that part right. Thomas Massey gets that right. No, I don't believe it's the welfare state, because I need to promote my economics. And if I can't abandon my economic position, the welfare state is no good. But, I still want to get rid of the CIA. And I love this comment right here that Jackie Bailey put there. He's blaming the CIA, but he's not blaming the CIA. A lot of double talk. You know what I'm saying? And
we heard that too.
yeah,
Vivek says, and Trump said, and they're stealing the American treasury and using it for endless wars that don't serve our national interest, which means it would be okay if they did endless wars that do serve our national interest. And trust me, whatever war they pull out of their ass anywhere going forward is going to be in our national interest.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts? You go ahead, Matt. My bad.
I was going to ask, because this part we kind of skipped over this morning, and I think this is important because you brought up Palestine, and we talked about Libertarian Party being one that wants accountability there about what the government's allowed to do as far as just declaring war for whenever they want. That's something they're against. My question to you, Pasta, was how much of the time did you feel was being spent by any of the conversations, not just yours, but anything you had your ear towards, or all the speeches? Would you give like a percentage? How much time was even spent on this genocide at this Libertarian convention at all?
A lot.
Good. I'll let Don, because Don was there. I'll let Don answer that.
A lot.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And and a lot of the people that were speaking, and I think it's partly just the way I've been trained in this society, and not necessarily the result of balanced, considered thinking and processing and such. I looked at when you go to some place where the ideology is on the right side of the spectrum, which Libertarian is mixed in that way, but in terms of fundamentals, economics, it's on the right side of it, and so you have to designate it there at least. And so when you're going to talk about people on the right side turning around and criticizing Israel, I always am worried, like, oh damn, is this just a bunch of anti-Semitic, Jew-hating stuff? No. Most of the people that I spoke with, as a matter of fact, that were coming down with a critique of the details of what's going on in Gaza were Jewish and wearing it. So, and almost everyone I heard speak at all publicly about international affairs had front and center the genocide in Gaza. I was very surprised at how unambiguous they were about that.
So when Trump and RFK Jr. showing up, that must have been a little odd, right? Because you have this conversation happening, and then you got two guys showing up that think they can just waltz right in there and get all this praise, like there's some sort of anti-establishment figures, which everyone knows they're not when especially when you're talking about Palestine. So did you feel that pushback would happen even before they opened their mouths? Could you feel, was that in the air? Because I would have loved to be there to see that.
Let me answer that. Yes, 1,000%. And the reason why I've been having this sign upside down, because he still hasn't changed his position. And today, I think he even said that the Palestinians, Derek Bros asked him at another convention, that today he even said that they are still the most pampered. And coming out of the RFK speech, I spoke to delegates. The video is on my YouTube channel. The major reason why the delegates of the Libertarian Party, the majority reason why, is they won't vote for him because of his stance on Israel, Palestine. Libertarians are based when it comes to our foreign policy. Even if it's a different view, we think that these people lack compassion and they're killing these people and stealing their resources is bad. They don't want to do it because they don't want what Ron Paul referred to as blowback. They don't want to deal with it. It's not in libertarian values to go into another country and steal their stuff. I do have one video, and there's a whole video of people coming out, many delegates coming out saying, hey, but this is Brandon Daugherty. Brandon Daugherty I met, he said, oh my God, I want to take a picture with you, and he was watching my work, and I thought it was really cool. But I also caught him on the floor. He's a delegate, and I asked him his stance on RFK and everything. Take a look. This is a quick 2-minute video. Listen to what he had to say.
Yeah.
So who am I speaking with over here?
Brandon Daugherty.
Brandon, what are you doing here?
I am voting for our next presidential candidate, and yesterday we nominated renominated Angela to the chair, and here to do business.
You were happy about the renomination of the chair?
I'm I would say more indifferent, but I think she makes bold strategies, and some work, some don't. So you're allowed to have your own opinion on that.
So what do you think about the nomination for the presidential candidate? Because if you don't get a decent amount of votes, you can lose a lot of ballot access. And it seems like the Libertarians are missing their opportunity right now, being that they've established themselves as the third party, ex-Democrats like myself here, ex-Republicans all over the place. What are your thoughts on that?
On specifically not nominating Kennedy, would you say, or just in general?
I don't know if they maybe should have to nominate Kennedy if that's going to help them out, but I believe he'll lose ballot access too as well. I don't know how that works.
They were saying that Kennedy might take away the third party vote. So in some states, you have to have 3% on the presidential ticket to keep ballot access for the next election.
Okay.
And they're afraid that Kennedy's going to take our 3% this year, and that in some states where we normally get 3%, we might get 2%, 1%, or 0.5%. My personal opinion on it is that I am a libertarian because I'm anti-war. I think Americans shouldn't be building bombs to blow up brown people all over the world. And RFK Jr. refuses to call what Israel's doing in Palestine a genocide. And for that, he will not get my support. We are the party of principle, and he does not stand with my principles.
Let us know about your campaign. What's going on? I see you got your shirt rolling and rocking, baby.
Oh, yeah. So I'm running for United States Congress in Missouri's 2nd Congressional District. I'm running against Warhawk Ann Wagner. She's been in office for she's running for her 6th consecutive term. She was the RNC chair from 2001 to 2004, where I've heard her in person brag about getting George W. Bush, a war criminal, reelected. And
we'll stop it there. You can watch the rest of the video if you want to go to Pasta to Go. It's up there. But you see, listen, he kind of straightened me out because I was veering off. I had a different discussion. I was getting a little confused. One of the ideas coming in this convention is that RFK was a shoo-in to get this top of the ticket, because people were going to come together and say, listen, we are not going to have a candidate come out of this that's going to be little known. We can lose ballot access in at least 10 states. In other words, there was a scare at one point that in the last round, Chase had to beat none of the above, and a lot of people were going to vote for none of the above. And there was a scare. They even mentioned that if Chase lost the final round to none of the above, they would leave that convention. They would close that convention without a Libertarian candidate. Automatically, you lose ballot access in 10 states. Hey, we have a very not such a well-known candidate. We can lose ballot access in a bunch of states. Why don't we put RFK on the ballot, right? Because at the very least, what he'll do is he'll tape it up and keep our ballot access. Thank you, Jamie. He'll keep our ballot access relevant until we get to 2028. You know what I'm saying? And in fact, maybe he might even get on the stage, the debate stage, as a libertarian, and the libertarian will take the stage. They won't do it. I have a whole video of people coming out, delegates, Matt, and they're saying they won't do it. Why? Israel, Palestine. Maybe Don could add to that from people he talked to, but it was a hard stop. No way, no RFK. Go ahead.
First, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, look, you've got the issue of Israel and Palestine. You've got the larger issue of war and peace in general, and militarism and international law, humanitarian law, straight up humanitarianism, the human rights of Palestinians, the compassion we're supposed to have for people that are hungry, all of this stuff. There's a million things there that are both urgent, major, big picture problems, and also emotionally compelling. You've got the conduct of a presidential election, okay, which is a part of the political life, in the political economy of the empire and of the United States. You've got all this sideshow crap that, like we've been talking about the first part of the program about Trump in jail and all that nonsense. When we're working, and we've got issues, actual, public policy issues, huge public policy needs in the United States. I realize that the poorest people and poorest communities in the United States still look, somewhat affluent compared to some of what we've left, or what has, in any event, been placed upon people in a number of pockets of the world, some pockets rather large. when we're acting in the context of a political campaign, and if we're looking at like the Libertarian Party as this one structure outside the Democratic and Republican parties that is going to have ballot access in all 50 states, so excuse me, their ballot position in those states is the only ticket to the presidency outside of the Republican and Democratic parties or a military coup or whatever. There's an awful lot of wrangling of all kinds of powerful interests that go on around what exactly that ballot space is going to be used for. There are the people who have control over the party and over the decision making of the party. It's a fairly democratic institution the way I saw it, for better or worse, as we saw. And there are a variety of ideological trends and competing public policy wants among the people who are making those decisions. Looking at it objectively, just in terms of, retail electoral politics, looking at the Libertarian Party as, a new construct that A, you want to survive to the next election, and B, you don't want to consign to the ghetto of 3%, as Trump, pointed out and is obvious, but rather you want to grow and turn it into a force. Then you have to start looking at what do each of these things mean. First, Chase is really the candidate of the other faction, right? Not the faction that got the chair, not Angela's faction, but the other faction. And there was some bad blood evidence both at the convention and in the aftermath. I saw some of the video interviews that everybody did. He's not well known. He's never, really had a job, anything approaching the presidency. And that's not any different, say, than Ronald Reagan, who the closest he got was being governor of California and then, co-acting with a chimpanzee, which is pretty much the same thing also. If you're looking at what do you do with this thing, this Libertarian Party in the 2024 election, how do we guarantee not only that we're going to get 3%, but perhaps attain getting 15 or 20 or 30%, so that as we go into, first of all, I would have on the agenda for me, if I were part of a ruling group in the Libertarian Party or anything like it, and this isn't a critique of what they're doing, I'm just talking about me, I would have a goal of having control of enough votes that I could change the outcome of the election in some of the swing states, so that I could turn to the two parties and say, deal us in, because we're going to be back in 4 years, and whoever we like, we're going to favor with this, and whoever we don't like, we're going to take out. This is what should have happened with the Green Party in 2000. When Ralph Nader and the Greens were accused of swinging Florida. Nader, who is, he's clean cut, he's above board, honest, full disclosure guy, bright, can add and subtract, and made an honest critique of what happened. And he said, I didn't change the outcome of the election. What changed the outcome of the election were hanging chads and, Supreme Court stepping on the process. And also, by the way, Al Gore not campaigning for his constituents, looking practically indistinguishable from George Bush. That's what lost the election for Al Gore. What I would have done instead, when the Democrats came and said, you took the White House away from us, I would say, yep, you're damn right I did. And you know what? In 2004 and 2008 and 2012 and beyond, I'm going to do the same goddamn thing until you come to the table with some meat and put something on my plate.
Yeah.
How you're supposed to use these, these minor parts. That's what was done for years. After a while, they traded just for personal patronage. But like the unions had parties, and they gave the ballot line to governor candidates and congressional candidates who put out for them, who came back with something for them. The Right to Life Party in New York, as a little marginal party back in the 70s when it first went on, the early 80s when they first went on the ballot, laughable. They were decisive in a couple of New York State gubernatorial elections. And the fullest expression of that is what we saw come out of the Supreme Court when they knocked down Roe v. Wade. It is possible to exercise power from the margins.
Yeah.
And the first step for the Libertarian Party ought to be to try to position itself to do that. So then the question becomes, how do you do it? And then no matter the stance, no matter who the candidate is, whether he's a libertarian or not, whether you agree with him on this or that or the other, whether he's a war criminal or not, that doesn't distinguish him from the other two candidates. You look at these things and say, is this a weapon I can use here?
Yeah.
Otherwise, whatever you're investing in that party is effort you should be spending somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because
Amen. What do you say to my question then? Is the Libertarian Party the best vehicle for we the people to govern? I want to hear Matt's Wineglass's answer real quick, and then we'll get right back to you, Don, because you pretty much hit it on the nose there. What do you think? I mean, you didn't get to witness this. I did. And there are people who are kind of criticizing the voting system itself. We see our friend Friendly Brilliant in the chat made something. If it was a real what do you call it? Voting system. Where's she at? All right. Instant runoff voting doesn't happen the way they did the nomination. I worked to try to get California to go instant runoff voting. And if they had real instant runoff voting, Rectenwald would have been nominated. That might be the case. But their system, the way they do things, is still by far one of the better ones I've seen. I can tell you this with confidence, that Chase Oliver is not a CIA plant. He's just a guy who won the debate at the election, at the convention. He's a guy who knocked on the most doors and went to 50 states to talk to the people. He's the one who won the convention, so therefore he won the nomination. Go ahead, Matt Weinglass.
All right. So you've definitely convinced me on the, unless I see proof, I'm not going to assume anything nefarious about Chase. So I'm with you on that. However, and what, the point, Don, you just brought up, this is a very important, we talk about this all the time on the homeless stuff. We talk about how politics is supposed to work. And that example, that's brilliant of what Ralph Nader should have done. And we know it's what Bernie should have done twice, and he didn't. And it's like we fall for this shit every time. Well, we don't, but there people fall for that, and they go, "Oh, what happened?" No, you're supposed to leverage your power and make something happen. So we see it happen on lower levels. We never see it. We never actually see it happen at the presidential level. We just have other examples where we're like, "Why can't you do what you're doing down here? Do it out up here." We never see it. So I would say, to answer your question, Pasta, I would say this: is the Libertarian Party the best vehicle for being a little better than we are at this moment? Maybe, but I don't know if, I think we might be falling for the lesser, it would be in this case, the lesser of three evils or the lesser of five evils. It's just not, it ultimately, what is the goal? I think Don, you asked this earlier, what is the objective? And I think we need to look at what they've done right and say, you know what? That's how to run a convention. Okay. We'll keep that in mind for the next one that we are going to actually get behind. So I'd say let's take the things they've done right. But as far as a vehicle to get to a destination, no, I'm not there yet. I'm not there. I think we have to restructure everything, re-educate everyone on how politics is supposed to work, and throw people out like, I love the No Way RFK Jr. because you're captured. And we just apply those principles moving forward. But no, I don't think we're going to get to a destination. So no, I don't think the vehicle, that's my answer, is I don't think that is the objective. I think we have to be okay with the fact that we're not going to actually get anywhere, except just learn from everything we've had to go through up to this moment. And I'll try to apply it to something else in the future.
Goddamn Marxists on my show. Well, you want to blow it up and just start from something scratch. Don, you answer the question. I'm sorry. I disagree with Matt. I do believe it is the best vehicle at this moment. And that's the thing that you can see within the Libertarian Party. You can have a grassroots movement. The Mises Caucus has took over. They're still learning. They got some lumps. They're going to take this one right on the nose because, once again, they didn't get a candidate across the finish line. But, you know, I think maybe they got to get the better and the right candidate that's not going to have themselves. And I like Mike Rectenwald, but, you know, he had that kind of Joe Biden moment on Saturday. He took an edible, kind of got lost, and that kind of reflected. And like I said, when it came to yourself, you know, he knocked on the most doors and went to most states. He worked the hardest. He outworked everybody. And the guy sitting at the top, you also got to know people are going to come for you. You're the Mises Caucus. Whether they like your ideology or not, they're going to come for you because you're the ones in power. Go ahead, John. Your opinions.
Well, okay. I mean, we're talking about like sort of the retail politics of it, and I'm glad to do that. Excuse me. If we're looking at the issues, the policy issues that confront us urgently right now, like, I mean, I don't know if you're following the last couple of days what's going on between Russia and Washington and the EU around Ukraine.
Yeah.
But the chance of an escalation, of a rapid escalation to an actual war, it's accelerating.
Yeah. And
it's frightening. And likewise, you know, the Netanyahu's desperation, you know, some of the things he's thrown, and just the wildness of this in the face of what's left of the illusion of international law. While we're looking at these political parties as one of the tools to actualize some policy changes, we have to look at how they fit into what's happening right now, and sort of look at a timeline too, to see that our existence doesn't sunset before like the next FEC filing date or whatever. In other words, you know, the minutia of electoral politics is the thing itself is a very important part, but we've got some things going on right now that are much more urgent, and that we should be using every little corner of what's available to us to weigh in on. And so first I thought Angela inviting all 5 candidates, which is what she did. She invited Biden, Trump, Kennedy, Jill Stein, and Cornel West. I thought that she should have done that. I thought that was brilliant to do. You know, it's an open party. We're open to discuss ideas. We have free speech, unlimited, all of that. Come on, we're not afraid to talk to any of you. Come on in, make your pitch. Maybe you'll convince some of us. I think that's an excellent approach to that process. And I'm glad that she got Kennedy and Trump there. And I'm glad that they did speak to some of this other stuff outside of Israel-Palestine that also needs to be spoken about. And I'm glad that they let the weight of their presence put some of that in the big media, where all of the rest of everyone there, including us speaking, wouldn't. And I think that those are the kinds of things we got to be looking at. Whatever weapons we can pick up to stop this damn thing from going where it's going, we have to utilize. And so I see the Libertarian Party and the candidacy of the whoever it's going to be, of their presidential candidate, and everything around it in the context of how useful is this to stopping the war with Russia and to tamping down or reversing the increasing trend towards a world war. Because if we don't do that, I think all the rest of this is a waste of time, really.
Yeah. Well, they are the anti-war party now, right? Like
who knows that?
Full.
So what I'm saying is the ideological position is one thing for all of us. But if it's not impacting the public discourse, let alone public policy, then, you know, maybe we'll go to heaven. But we're going to be off this planet pretty damn soon.
Yeah. I mean, are they aware of all these World War III fronts we're on? Are they talking about these or having discussions about policy? If they were in office, what would you do about all of this?
Kennedy spoke about that in depth. I mean, Kennedy spoke about, you know, the CIA is a captured agency. Its job is to make these wars for the Pentagon so that there's an endless stream of cash into the arms manufacturers, blah, 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 blah. And I would close the military bases and stop this war. Trump, I will stop the war in 24 hours with Russia. Forget the rhetorical bullshit with, I'll blow up Moscow and Beijing. That's what he said about DPRK also. And what he did was get that close to a peace treaty, which we hadn't had since 1952.
Yeah. And both RFK and Donald Trump went where? To the Libertarian Party. Their message is getting.
I got it. And so what we have in the aftermath of that to work with, because that's all this stuff is worth, is what can we do with what we got now to affect these changes, to change the course of this thing or whatever. What we have is a lot more people saw a discussion of the fact that we are at war with Russia for real, that this is some bad stuff, and that this is something that shouldn't happen, let alone doesn't have to happen. Yeah. Some people are hearing that despite the efforts of the mass media because they had to cover them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we do with that next? That's the question.
I was going to play the Vivek video really quickly because I also did realize that I got Vivek to admit that a lot of people coming across the border are not necessarily Democrats, and what he referred to as, let's just play it here. Jamie Cheese Slice, we got it. We're going to play the Vivek one really quick, and Don has a bunch of beautifulness with Vivek that you got to see too as well. Make sure we put that link in the chat. But here was the interview.
Yeah. Just go to my
Jardula,
page.
Independent Media. Nice to meet you. Yeah. So you've pushed
Independent Media.
Well, no, it's Pasta to Go. That show over there.
Oh, nice. I love it.
Gotcha. Trying to get a little Anthony Bourdain and show some food and whatnot.
I love that.
So my question to you is this: you've talked about replacement theory. Do you have any evidence whatsoever that an immigrant has exchanged their vote, which they can't even vote anyways, for citizenship when you push replacement theory?
I didn't push anything. So what I believe, though, is that it has been part of the Democratic Party's longstanding vision to use large-scale illegal immigration as a way of acquiring long-run voters. And the best evidence for that is the fact that many of those people who did enter the country illegally are on a path to actually vote in elections, are on a path to citizenship, which allows them to vote. And so my view is there is an alignment of incentives here. It's no accident. It's not a coincidence that most of the people in the Democrat Party who favor open border policies are also the same people in the Democratic Party who are opposed to voter ID requirements in order to vote. I don't think that's a coincidence, and I think that reflects incentives.
But what evidence do we have, though? Well, what evidence do we have that they would vote Democrat in the first place? A lot of these people who are coming across the border are very religious. They're not going to really go play into the LGBT community, whatnot, and we don't have any evidence.
So just because you have a plan doesn't mean it's going to be an effective plan. I actually agree with you that many people who are coming to this country share deeply foundational conservative values, pro-family values, pro-country values. And so it's my view that in the long run, just because they've laid that plot out doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to succeed for them. But I do think that understanding an actor's incentives, when somebody tells you they're going to do something, it's in their incentive, or at least they believe it's in their incentive to do it. It's important to connect those dots and understand that. Now, my view is if you enter this country illegally, you should be returned to your country of origin. And if you want to enter this country legally, if you have something actually to tangibly add value unambiguously to this country, and you embrace the values of this country, we should have an efficient legal path for people to enter. I think both of those things are deeply compatible, and so that's where I'm coming from.
Quick follow up. Quick follow up.
I appreciate it. I think they're taking me to the next.
Yeah. Let me just run out of here before I have to answer another question. Let me skate on out of here. Quick follow up. Just quick follow up. Can't. Nope. I don't get it.
Hand on your shoulder. That was a nice touch.
The dude behind me. Get this guy. Get me away from this guy quickly.
That was good. Plus, you had the tie on and he didn't.
You got a whole. I put it in the chat, guys. Go check out Don's stuff. That I thought that was great. I do have one last video because before we get out of here, because I think it's important we talk about Chase Oliver, this guy who won the nomination. I mean, look, I said this before from the get-go. When a guy goes out there and he knocks on doors, right? And this is a valuable lesson to learn. When somebody does the work, he wins the debate. And you have a system the way the Libertarians have it, he has a shot of winning. And this guy won. I'll say this right off the bat. Let me take that away real quick. He is not a CIA plant. Would you agree there on that, Don? Or maybe he, huh?
I have no idea. I don't even think it's relevant, honestly. It doesn't matter. He's not gonna make an impact. He doesn't add. anything. So no matter what he says, the best he can do is hold on to their base who are already going to vote for the party.
Yeah. Well, I think he does add something to the conversation, right? I mean, this is a guy.
I don't mean the value of what he says. I mean, he's not going to add a single slice of population to it that isn't there already. He's going to be talking to singing to the choir.
Let's play the video. Let's take a look.
Thank you.
Chase.
Hello.
How you doing? I'm Craig Pasta, Jardula, independent media. My show's called Pasta to Go, just so you know. I'm not here to...
Pasta to go. I like that.
So, Chase,
it's all about the fettuccine.
It is. Well, it could be the bucatini sometime. I mean, now we know that you like fettuccine. Chase, you are now the Libertarian candidate for President of the United States. You're going to come out of this pretty much an unknown by a lot of people who are not inside the Libertarian Party. How do you make a splash for the Libertarian Party for those out there who don't know who Chase Oliver is?
Well, I think it requires energy, enthusiasm, and running a bold campaign that takes no prisoners, that says we must free ourselves from the warfare state and the abuses of this overly abusive and intrusive state as it currently exists. If we run true to our principles with energy, enthusiasm, and passion, we will wake people up. Know one thing about me. I'm not a politically connected elite. I'm not somebody who was born with a silver spoon in my mouth or has been in politics for the last 50 years. I know what it means to be someone who lives paycheck to paycheck in this life. I have lived the life that so many Americans are and that so many Americans are struggling to get ahead with. And I know we can do better as a country. And I urge you, if you're not a libertarian, to learn about the libertarians. Go to lp.org, check out our platform, and see that freedom is truly the answer to all of the ills that exist within our own government.
All right. So goes the time.
Chase Buttigieg. I mean, yeah, no, sorry, got the last name wrong on that one. He's not a CIA plant. I'll set the record straight.
Chase Buttigieg. Wow, you son of a beeswax. Bada boom boom.
No, he's not co-opted. I'm just playing. I think I'm with Don. It doesn't really make a difference either way. But there's no sign that he is directly. So it's
look now. There's okay. So you have an activist party like this. Okay, you have an activist base. Its fullest expression we see so far with Gary Johnson. I think right. He's had the biggest vote, and it was 3% or whatever it was. And we've done this with Ralph and stuff too. You're frozen out of the debates. You get a little bit of coverage in the mass media. When you do, it's targeted to suit the electoral aims of whoever that media is supporting. So, for example, the third-party candidates in 2016 were brought to the fore because it was, figured that the opposition, Clinton was the establishment candidate. Let's divide the opposition between the Greens and the Libertarians and Trump. That was the theory. So they got a lot more exposure in terms of face time on CNN and MSNBC and even Fox than they normally do. And with that, in the aggregate, I think they got maybe 5 or 6, 7% between the Greens and Libertarians and the other minor parties, Peace and Freedom and the PSL, etc. What happens is, you're confined to a ghetto of activists and our networks, and at that, they're constantly interfering with our networks. They're taking them apart, banning people from social media. You can't say this. You're demonetized. You know this better than I do, Pasta, as a victim of it. And so, look, for an electoral party to grow, the question is, how do we add constituencies to the base that we know is already going to vote for us? And if you're not going to be able from the start to force yourself into the public discourse in the mass media, then you have to bring someone to the party that already has additional constituencies that will follow them, and that'll be, at least in a marriage of convenience, compatible. And so in that vein, Ralph Nader, for example, helped the Greens get off way higher than they would have on their own activism. And by the same token, Bobby Kennedy, for example, would do the same thing with the Libertarians, and not just him. We should be thinking, for example, who would be such a candidate that also has a view we can be compatible with on, say, an issue like genocide, and who is going to further the public policy aims, at least in terms of broadening the discussion, accelerating, movement towards, being able to impact it. Who would that person be? And then, maybe somebody goes up to Chase and says, I understand you're developing a chronic medical condition, and you're going to have to step aside and dust off the committee to fill vacancies or whatever, and put somebody in that chair that the media has to cover, or that has networks of, email lists with 15 or 20 million voters or whatever. In other words, you have to construct this thing. You're not going to build it by getting a charismatic person nobody's ever heard of and using the same networks that you've had for 5 or 10 years, thinking you're going to catalyze something to make it grow. It doesn't happen. And even if it did happen, it would take place over 5, 10, 20 years. And maybe we have 5 weeks.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here. I'm going to give a little pushback.
I hope I'm wrong.
I'm just going to give a little pushback. Just hear me out, because I think listen, I've been saying this before. So goes the time, so goes the discussion. We understand. We went to this party over here. We saw the majority of what the Libertarian Party, with their new grassroots movement where the Mises Caucus has taken over, what dominated the discussions. It was the things that are happening in our society which people are really pissed off with. Censorship. So many people have been witnessing censorship. The everyday person sees that certain people are not allowed to say certain things because it's against the rhetoric of those in control. I think that's on a lot of people's plate right now. They understand this isn't their mom and pops, their grandmammy and grandpappy's United States. You don't have the freedom of speech anymore. A libertarian value, a strong libertarian value. Number 2, freedom of the press. A lot of people understand that are out there that the press is a very valuable tool, not just to give everybody information, but to keep the government in line. Another strong libertarian value. 3, war. Everybody's talking, we can't have nice things. So much money is going to Ukraine, Russia. So much money is going to the 51st state in Israel with their genocidal war against Gaza. These things that are happening in our time are making people naturally matriculate to the Libertarian Party. He's got a microphone. He's got a platform more than ever. He said in that statement, I think people are going to wake up when they start seeing what we're all about. Now, is he as good as Spike Cohen and laying out the libertarian points? No, he's not quite there yet, but he does have a talent. He's a very well-seasoned candidate. He got 81,000 votes in Georgia in a Senate race. He's the reason he forced a runoff. I think that we're underestimating the value right now of the Libertarian Party and the libertarian voice, specifically with the candidate running for president, because people are so distressed with the fact that it's Donald Trump and Joe Biden again. They're going to look at third-party candidates. So I think that the impact that this guy could make is being underestimated at this time. And right now, the Mises Party has one job to do: to make sure they hold serve. They're not going to win the game right now. It's a long game, but this guy is carrying the party's name. He's carrying the party's ballot access, more importantly. So they have some work to do, but I think that it's being underestimated what this guy could bring to the table, especially since his number one message is to push back on the fact that they can blow up this planet 20,000 times, and they're on the path to do so. I just feel that way.
So I've been through, I don't want to monopolize this. You want to say something first?
Matt?
Oh, Matt? Yeah. No, I'm just going to stick with this. I say, I'm keeping an eye on him. I really am interested in what he has to say next now that he's in the driver's seat. He needs to answer these questions, the conversations we're having today. Other people on other shows, we're going to continue to have these conversations. So we're not brushing him aside by any means, but I have very low bar expectation on what's going to happen next. But let's say in a perfect universe, perfect, alternate dimension, he starts talking like Don DeBar right now. Then I'm going to be like, oh shit, this guy has a purpose. You know, if he starts saying things like answering the questions that you and I were talking about earlier today, Pasta, like that would change, at least for me. It would have some sort of value that he's doing something to shake things up and give us some sort of principle to go on. If that doesn't happen, it's nothing's going to come from this at all. Other than, like I said earlier, we got to take what works. If the convention was run well, then let's try to apply that to other conventions in the future. That's all I got to say. But I'm not I can't say I'm on this team, but I do think we need to continue having discussions and need to have him answering these questions and saying what are you going to do about these things, and how do you have to answer. You have to answer these questions, and then we'll see what happens next.
Don.
So, in the event he starts talking like me, some people want to chase him around with a net. You know, I want to. Well, first of all, possibly, you know, what you're saying. I haven't been looking at this. I don't know. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't. Probably not either. But one thing we could be doing is looking at, with all of the things that you say or correctly, you know, are germinating and cooking in this stew that's, you know, still to be, you know, born. How's the enrollment been going in the Libertarian Party, say over the last 4 years? Has it doubled, tripled, quadrupled, or is it like 5% growth or decline? I mean, that might be.
I don't have the exact numbers, but I will take a look. I know that they are the third party now, right? I mean, but let me write that down so I get the chance to ask Michael Heiss or Angela McCarter when I do get the chance.
And I'm sure Angela's growing the party, but I'm saying in terms of the objective conditions, creating soil where it has to, you know, the way it sounded like it would be fertilizer, like super fertilizer, that might be one marker. And anyway, as far as that goes, with the way things are right now, back in 2008, we experienced the collapse of the economy on a massive scale. You know, they compared it to the so-called Great Depression, 1929 at SEC. And there was a huge loss of confidence in the institutions. The war in Iraq had been exposed, you know, to be a fraud. And the war in Afghanistan, the same. Abu Ghraib, all these things were exposed. It was so bad, and the political situation so much in chaos, that for the first time in American history, they nominated the black guy in the Democratic Party. Okay, people like to paint this as a hallelujah moment that America has finally transcended its racist past and all of that crap. And there may be some collateral truth in that.
There is.
But the real thing was there was a total source of chaos in the public narrative. Everything fell apart in front of everybody, and there was no amount of bullshit that they could use as mortar to put it back together. In that chaos, the third party at that time was the Green Party, and they nominated Cynthia McKinney, and that was an organic function of the Green Party rather than the Democratic Party hiring a black face out of a reservoir of second and third level politicians. They had just recently elevated him to the Senate so that he'd have the national creds, but he was not either someone that came from street organizing or community organizing. He was manufactured that way, and they put him in. Cynthia McKinney ran with the activist party when the economy was open to critique from the ground up, when across the board, the political system, war, things that she had a hand in fighting while she was in Congress, all of that. I thought what you just said now, the time is right. She's going to make an impact. Ralph Nader was getting 3, 4, whatever percent. We were trying to get 5, I think was the magic FEC number. She's going to get 10 or 15. And she got 0.1%. Because she got no coverage from anybody. And there was no organization the retail kind of organization you need to litigate at the state and county level over ballots and where the machines are and all that kind of stuff. And I think unless something is done with the Libertarian Party to draw some sort of mass base into it that's attached to somebody, that's the only way I see you can do it at the moment, that it's going to be in the same position, no matter what we want.
I don't know. I think it's different times. So we didn't have the intranet back then. It was very, very small. And no, we didn't. I mean, the internet was, like I said, and people have just moved to that party as a whole. It's going to be interesting. I hope that I'm right. I know you hope, both of you hope that you're wrong.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
Because if he does break through on an anti-war message, if he does talk about some of the values of liberty, and I don't like his economic values, I'm not there with it. Like, Don, I tell people all the time, if I were to join the party, and I think you too, if we were both to join the Libertarian Party, we'd probably be in the bottom 10% of people in that party. The majority of the people would probably be like the Jeremy Coffins and say, don't call yourself a libertarian. You guys believe in central planning. It doesn't work. Let's play the rest of this video and then finish it on up in the show.
I'm going to have to go. So
you have to go right now?
Very, very soon.
All right, really quickly.
Chase, what do you tell an independent who's left-leaning that wants some Medicare for all system? It's completely against libertarian ideology, but how do you get those people who are so sick and tired of seeing people going bankrupt from medical bills?
I understand the need to help people who are suffering from healthcare abuses and the overcost of healthcare, but creating a one-size-fit-all single-payer plan will not solve that issue. In fact, it will stifle the innovation of our marketplace that allows these new medical technologies to emerge, that allows us to live longer, healthier lives. There are much better ways using free market forces and getting the government out of healthcare altogether that can ultimately lower the cost of healthcare for you and your family.
Chase, there's still a problem with a lot of entities that can still do gain-of-function testing. Will you ban gain-of-function testing on day one?
Well, I will be banning on things. Let me just say this. I don't want the government to be investing in any medical research. I would rather the free market invest in those things, because ultimately they're going to be held more accountable than some unelected government bureaucrats who are possibly poisoning us with whatever they want to put in our bodies.
So that's that. I'm not going to ask anymore there. I asked him about the party and the vice president and stuff, but you can see right there, like, gain of function on day one. The free market forces, like, it gets like, all right, I don't agree. But it comes from this place where they're trying to defang the oligarch. Don, finish up the show and let us know your final thoughts, and then we'll get Matt's final thoughts and get on out of here.
It was interesting seeing the Libertarian Party convention, certainly. I met a lot of interesting people. I saw some things that gave me a great deal of hope. I saw a couple things that scared the bejesus out of me. I think that I'm very impressed. I've been impressed with Angela since I met her last February at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. And, I actually met her before that when you had us together on your program, and made contact with her afterwards. She's a very impressive person, and she's young, so she's going to be around for a good long while, if there's any justice. And so I hope she's going to have a very positive impact on politics and public policy in this country for a long time. I dug working with you guys, of course. It's the first time that I got to work with Jamie, in person, and we had a ball. I was glad to be able to bring Gary, who's been my partner in a number of presidential, the political conventions over the years. We've worked on campaigns together. He's worked on mine when I ran for mayor and other offices, and I worked on his. He ran for state assembly and other offices. And it was great to bring Margot to that too, who's she has not done a lot of work in politics, and I can see her eyes lighting up and like the light bulbs going off on it, because she's very bright and she's very involved in things, but this was like a new facet for her. So I had a great time personally with all of that. Looking at this convention in the moment, it really came to me that, this is one of the weapons that should be used and could be used somewhat effectively to stop the madness that is imminent. I mean, literally reading what goes on a daily basis between Washington and Moscow and Brussels, you can see that and Berlin and elsewhere in Europe, there's this great potential for. I think I called it in one of the interviews I did. The guns of whatever month this is now. It's going to be June, the day after tomorrow. As in the Guns of August, that Professor Barbara Tuchin's book describing how Europe sleepwalked into World War I. I see that the walking is not so much sleepwalking, that there's some really psychotic people making policy in Washington. The face of the Biden administration, Matt Miller, John Kirby, the lot of them, Blinken, they're frightening as hell. They're psychopathic. Their policies are psychopathic. They lie straight to the face of the people that challenge them at all, and the few that do, the Sam Husseini and Matt Lee and a few others. And what they're talking about, on a daily basis is the murder of another 50 or 100 or 200 people, children. Oh, it's a tragic mistake. Oh, it didn't happen, et cetera, et cetera. And pushing further and further into Russia's territory with our weapons being fired increasingly by our own people, with Russia saying, we know this is happening. It's going to reach a certain point where it's going to stop. The errors that were made before World War I, where everyone thought what everyone else's response would be to this action or that action, because that's how they responded 50 or 75 years ago, they're misreading the fact that they believe that they can impose a strategic loss on Russia that will cause a regime collapse there so that they can dismantle the Russian state and take the resources. And Russia, its doctrine is that if it comes close to that, they launch nuclear weapons. They've been openly speaking about the fact that if it comes to that, that's what's going to happen. And yet, these people, for no sane reason, are continuing the aggression and increasing it. I'm looking at whatever political tool there is out here as an imperative to be brought to bear on that before we have nothing to talk about, because we're all dead.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you can't talk about it in purpose at the Green Party, because the Green Party's 2024 national meeting will take place online August 15th through 18th, 2024.
Safe and effective.
We are delighted to gather virtually, providing an opportunity for all to participate this year. That's the
Safety
same
first.
reason they use for ballots and stuff. Don, you can get on out of here. We'll get Matt's final opinion and close the show.
Matt, Pasta, thank you guys. Peace and
Thank
love.
you.
And I hope we have a chance, man. We got to fight like hell now, real hard.
We'll
Hey,
keep
Don,
on
I would love
doing
to
this
have you
over
on the
here.
Homeless Left sometime. Continue discussion.
I'm in. Grab me.
Awesome.
He'll give you my contact info. I'm
Great.
game. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Bye, guys. Peace out.
Very good.
Peace, love, and cheese slice. Good, Mike. Matt, give us your final thoughts.
Listen, I'll give my final take on where the Libertarian Party, we're studying, having this discussion today on both our shows. And I've been processing all the information, and I do take a lot what you say to heart as far as the actual experience there in DC, Pasta. But I will end on this note. I'm going to say this, because you started by telling us where you started, your first convention you were at. And I'm going to tell a quick story about the first convention I was at. And I don't think I've even told this story on Homeless Left, but so you're hearing it first here. My first convention was the DNC in 2008 in Denver, Barack Obama's inauguration. And I was covering it as we were doing a documentary series. The ACLU had sponsored it. We were independently trying to get it out to a lot of outlets back then. This is like 3 years since YouTube was even created. So we were just kind of looking to see what we could do with this. But the point was, let's follow this moment in time Don mentioned it earlier, this moment that we were supposed to all elevate together and say the Democratic Party is doing something historic. We're all going to be affected positively by this. We're all kind of coming together, and we're going to be there to see this in Denver. It's a big moment in Denver. And, you know, and some crazy stuff happened there. We got so much great stuff on film, stuff we weren't allowed to get on film. I was in rooms where I wasn't allowed to have a camera on, and I got it. It unbelievable stuff. Just being in a room with Hillary Clinton, it was so weird. It was so, I look back on it now, it's so weird looking back and going, now that I have context I can apply, I didn't know then, as far as that it actually was all theater. All of that was theater. None of that was what we thought it was. So yeah, I think at the time I was like, you know, something was accomplished, but there was always this part that stuck with me. And that was one of the people we interviewed outside the Pepsi Center. This African-American woman, the only person we interviewed that told us that this is not the historic moment we thought it was, that this is going to be the war machine, business as usual. And I couldn't believe it. I go, what is this woman talking about? What is this black woman talking about? This doesn't make sense. What is she saying? And it always kind of stuck with me. And now, obviously, these years later, looking back, I can see she was 100% right. Nobody else was onto that. She was the only one. And it took me another 7 years to realize that the party was a complete joke. It took me to 2015 when I started seeing the way they treated Bernie. Why did it take me so many years? I don't know. I should have known then, but it took me. We all have our moment that we wake up. My point is this: the convention, the party convention procedure, that 4-day period, whatever it is, it seems like it's always been theater. And so if there's a moment that you experienced this weekend that actually followed some sort of ethical formula, that actually did something that was the way the system's supposed to work, then that's something. That's something that should mean a lot. If it's even just that, I'll say I want it to be that. I'm hopeful the way you described it. I'm hoping that was an honest thing that you experienced, that you're telling us it was. And if it's only that comes out of it, then that's maybe enough. That's maybe enough to say that something was achieved this election season, if nothing else. So that, to me personally, that means something. That there was a convention that you lived through this weekend, that I lived vicariously through you, where I could have kind of my mind restored from the crappy experience that I didn't know how bad it was until after the fact of 2008. And now here we are, 2024, and you can tell us this happened. I'm happy to hear that. And if we could even just take that away, that's at least something.
Matt Weinglass, everybody, the homeless left, go check him out. We've been on his streams all day today. Thank you so much, brother. It's great seeing you. If you want to let anybody know anything else, now's the time, because we're getting on out of here. It's almost 2 hours.
That's wow. I mean, great conversations today, all the way around. If you guys want to come check out the Homeless Left, we're live every Thursday on Rumble, YouTube, at the Homeless Left. 3-hour show. We usually go noon to 3, covering all this stuff. We're challenging it all. We're challenging the war machine. We're challenging Big Pharma. We're doing everything in a non-tribal approach, and that's why we call ourselves the Homeless Left. So we're all homeless, whatever we come from. Let's all band together and be homeless together. So yeah, our doors are open for all of you guys want to be part of that conversation. So thanks again so much, Pasta, for having me on with you today, and let's keep the conversation going.
Thank you, brother. You have a wonderful evening, bro.
Cool. All right, you too.
Love you. Love you.